This is our Changing State Vote 2024. I'm Matthew Peddie. If you're voting this November, you're going to get a ballot with a long list of candidates and issues on it. And if you haven't done any research on some of those candidates and issues, you're in luck because there's a voter guide on WUSF. And here to tell us more about it is WUSF's News Director, Mary Shedden. Mary, thanks for being here. Now, one of the ways to research those candidates is to go through the voter guide, but just tell us what's in it and what's not.
Sure. So the voter guide is looking at the candidates who are running for office for state level and federal offices. So what does that mean? That's President and U.S. Senate. There's a U.S. Senate race in Florida. But also it includes our state Senate candidates and state House candidates. And actually statewide, everybody is on the ballot for the state House. There are 120 races statewide, but we've tailored it down just for our region.
Now, the first thing you'll see on the voter guide page at the top is a set of tabs where you can find your House and Senate district and congressional representatives. And as you said, there's a lot of folks, so just explain why it's important to be able to kind of navigate your way through that.
Sure. Well, the people running for office, they're all about getting their name out. They just need name recognition. They want you to remember Matt Peddie's name when they're in the ballot box. So that's their focus, but that's not helping you, the voter. A lot of people, if you say, who's my state senator, who's my state representative, they're not going to know. So this tab at the top of it sends you directly to the Florida government Senate and State House guide and a congressional guide, and you type in your zip code or even your direct address. It's going to tell you who to vote for, so you don't have to scroll through all those races. You can go exactly to the candidates who are going to be representing you.
Right. It'll give you the options, not necessarily who to vote for, but who your choices are in those races.
Definitely.
So, candidates have their own websites. Voters are seeing and hearing a lot of political ads these days. So why is a voter guide like this needed?
Well, and candidate websites are great. They're probably the best place where you can get the language that the candidate might and their stance on issues that they represent. But the fact is, it's what they want you to see. They are not a unbiased or nonpartisan group that is asking the same questions of everybody. So you may have one candidate in a state Senate race that talks all about the environment, but their opponent is only talking about immigration, for example. So how do you know how they compare to the issues that matter to you? This gives you a link to their website, so you can check that out. But we're going to include a lot of other information so you can do that side-by-side comparison.
When I click on a profile for a candidate, what am I going to see?
You're going to see their picture, first of all, and these are all provided by the candidates, some maybe not if they didn't turn in a photo, but they're biographical information, links to official documents. That means that shows that they actually are legitimate candidates in the state of Florida, but that also includes who's involved in the campaign, like their treasurer, and that could be somebody you know or somebody you know of. And then we have other things like campaign contributions.
Mm-hmm. Now, why are campaign contributions important? Why should I care as a voter how much money somebody is getting in campaign contributions and from who?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of money behind politics, and I don't think any of us are surprised by that. What we will see in a campaign contribution is who's giving in those races. So, and this is the same for local races as well as ones on our voter guide. But say you look at the campaign contributions of a state House representative and you see maybe your neighbors have given to that race. That's going to tell you something more. But also you're going to see how much that candidate's making and if they're getting a lot of money, say, from the Democratic Party of Florida or the Republican Party of Florida or political action committees that are representing specific interests. And those interests may appeal to you. They may not. That, again, is more information you can have to make your own decision.
Right. So, for example, if there's some issues that are particularly important in this particular race and there are businesses that are contributing a lot of money, it allows you to do some thinking and ask yourself, why is this business giving money to this candidate?
Sure. Say your car mechanic is giving to this campaign. You can actually ask them, or if you know your mechanic is really interested in buying a piece of land next door and building smokestacks, that will tell you something too. Mm-hmm. Again, it's giving you information so you can hone it down to making a decision about people making decisions about you.
What questions did WUSF reporters ask the candidates?
I'm so glad you asked me about the questions because that's my favorite part. WUSF, back in February, we actually started asking people what issues matter to you in the 2024 election. We went to festivals. We had people fill out postcards saying what issues matter to them. They've done online surveys, and we've had informal conversations with folks. Those are the issues that we asked the candidates about in all the races. We asked them about all the constitutional amendments, for example, but we also asked them about things like the environment. What issues would they take to Tallahassee or to Washington? These we gave them open-ended questions so they could answer about in ways where you could hear how they felt on issues, and we gave them a chance to expound on it as well.
Some folks probably didn't expound much. Some may not have even gotten back to WUSF at all. So what do you do when a candidate doesn't respond to the questionnaire?
Definitely. And as somebody who's been in journalism and done a few voter guides over the years, that's not uncommon. There are a lot of candidates who either their campaign is really small and they just don't have the bandwidth, or they choose not to put their energies into answering the questions. And so we know people aren't going to respond. So we have assigned reporters to all of those races, and they're going to be going online, doing reporting, and filling in the answers of the questions that we asked. And more importantly, to be really transparent so you know how we found the information, we're going to link to, say, that speech we found on YouTube or that news story where they were quoted in. We want to make sure, again, that we're getting what the words from those candidates to you to make a decision.
Now, the voter guide also includes information about proposed constitutional amendments that voters are going to see on their ballot. So what will a voter learn about those amendments when they look at the voter guide?
So the candidates have all been asked, would you vote yes or no on all 6 amendments? But we also have on the voter guide information about the specific language about those amendments, what the language does and doesn't say. We have additional news stories. But even better, thanks to you, Matt, we have a couple of episodes of Our Changing State where we have conversations about what those amendments say, the pros and the cons. So again, in just a few minutes, you can help get information to decide what you want to do.
And some of the arguments back and forth are a bit complicated, right? A proposed amendment may be fairly short, but you can have a very substantial hour-long discussion and still have people with very different opinions at the end of it.
Right, and it's a personal issue for many people. It's important, and we have information that gives you the space to spend as much time thinking about it as you want, but we also give it to you straight and in a fast format, so even if you don't have all the time in the world, you can still get the information you need.
Mary, just back to what you said a few moments ago, you said that not all of the races are going to be included in this voter guide because there are a lot of local races, right? And we just don't necessarily have all the space in the world to put all the information out there. So where can voters learn about some of these other local races that may not have candidates represented in this voter guide?
Yeah, I would. Some local media, hyper-local, have had forums. They do interviews. So Google that name and look at it. Look up those candidates. We chose the statewide races because these are the folks least likely to be knocking on your door or being your true neighbors. And so we wanted to try to give you access to the people you might not meet in the grocery store. But we would recommend you talk to friends. If you have folks who are, there's some school board races, for example. Maybe you have kids in school. Maybe you have that conversation with your neighbors or your friends. And those are places that you should trust. If you trust your friends and you're having important conversations with them, start that dialogue. You don't have to, in my opinion, the more we talk to people, whether we agree or not, I think it's better.
Right. And I guess the key here is just do as much research as you can before you go and cast that ballot.
Right. And verify the sources. If you're looking at somebody's Facebook post ranting on a candidate and it's incredibly negative, ask yourself why. Or if it's somebody who this candidate was a principal at my kid's school and I had this experience, maybe you might give that a little more weight. You may not, depending on what's said. But the candidates and voters, we all have opinions, and that's important. Consider it and weigh it and think about how it matters to you.
If I'm voting in this election, there's a bunch of other information that I'll need to know: how to register, when to register, where to vote. Where do I find that information?
So WUSF.org. We've worked really hard on our Vote 2024 coverage, where we have a lot of things like key dates for the election. If the deadline for registering to get a mail-in ballot, for example, is just about here. So all those things, there are dozens of stories. We'll be continuing to add to them, but we try to break it down in really clear ways, headlines that say what it is, how you can find this out so that you can navigate it pretty easily. And we hope you visit because we've put a lot of work into it.
Right. So all that information is going to be on the voter guide page. You just have to scroll down and find it and click the button.
Right. And really just WUSF.org. It'll have links to Vote 2024 coverage, the voter guide. It's all there. And also, if you have any questions and we haven't answered them, there's going to be a box. The Citizens Agenda is still there, and you can scroll down and on the right side, ask your question because we'll be looking for answers up to Election Day.
WUSF News Director Mary Shedden, thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt.
I'm Matthew Peddie, and you've been tuned in to our Changing State Vote 2024. Thank you for watching. Our Changing State is a production of WUSF. Our executive producer is Gracyn Doctor. Scott Wachtler produces the podcast. Videos by Warren Buchholz and Chandler Balkcom, who also does our graphics. Engineering support from Blake Bass. Jackson Harpe composed our theme music. I'm Matthew Peddie. Thanks for listening.